We're back with our 1320 Kings Insider and creator of the Kings Beat, which you should all be a subscriber to. It's our man, James Ham. James, we were referencing the Kings Beat earlier because we had a lengthy discussion regarding Malik Monk after watching Sean Cunningham's video, which we can't play on the air because we'll get in trouble for it. But watching Malik dunk on the kids, we talked about how
did it for the children.
You did it for the kids. Also, The Athletic had written an article about teams' priorities next year, and obviously Malik is a major priority for Sacramento next offseason. And we started to look at, because they laid out the financial stuff, how there's not a lot of salary cap available and what Malik could possibly earn if he had a season that even mirrors what he did last year. Again, because I'm a premium subscriber over at thekingsbeat.com, I got a newsletter from James Ham that outlined Malik Monk and his financial setup. I'd like to have you break that down a little bit, but the first question I want to ask, because the number that we, landed on and that we were kind of talking about what it might look like for the rest of the league was the 4-year, $78 million. And you can explain to us how you got to that in just a minute. But my question to you is, and that's a $17.4 million. Is there a scenario where they can go over that if they had to?
No.
Not at all.
No. Okay, so the way the CBA works is if a player signs a 3-year contract, he has what's called full Larry Bird rights, right? So you can sign him, you can go above and beyond the salary cap up to his maximum salary for years of service to retain your own player. The problem that Malik has is that when he signed with the Sacramento Kings, he didn't sign a 3-year contract. He signed a 2-year contract, which puts him in the realm of the early bird rights. So early bird rights, we've known here in Sacramento, we talk about these all the time. We talked about them with Rashawn Holmes. We talked about him with Trey Lyles. And early bird rights for both of those players are slightly different than they are for Malik. And it's for one specific reason. Those guys didn't make nearly the amount that Malik makes right now. So Malik makes $9.9 million this year. So the early bird rights basically say that you can offer a player on your roster 105% of the league average salary as a starting salary for a new contract. And then you can give them 8% raises every year. And so for next season, the minimum scale, the average contract plus 5% is probably going to be around $12 million. So they could offer him a contract starting at $12 million that goes up 8% every year, whatever. Well, there's an either or in the early bird rights. So you can re-sign a player for up to that minimum, that league average, or 175% of his previous season's salary. Malik Monk makes 9.9, and this is where they separate from the Trey Lyles or the Rashawn Holmes. Rashawn Holmes made $5 million in the final year of that 2-year deal that he had. And so, of course, the $10.3 million that he got that year, which was 105% of the league average salary, was more than what 175% of $5 million would be. And the same thing with Trey Lyles. Trey Lyles, $2.6 million. So, for Trey, it'd be more advantageous to go with the other number. Well, with Malik, the 175% works out to like $17.4 million starting salary, and then 8% raises. And then when you get down to it, it's right around a 4-year 76 or whatever it was. Now that's a maximum the Kings can offer. That doesn't mean that the Kings are going to offer him that, but that is the maximum they can offer because the Kings are already above the cap for next season. Now, could they trade, Harrison Barnes and Kevin Huerter for nothing and be able to sign him to more money? Sure. But you've got to get all the way down.
So that's what I was getting at is it was the only way you can go over is if you get under the cap. The bird, the early bird and the Larry Bird rights and all of that stuff, that's advantageous for you because those are the types of rights that allow you to go over the cap to sign your own players.
Yeah.
And that's why those restrictions are put on them.
Totally. And so the 2023-24 season, so next summer, I think the projection is 142 million is the cap, right? Without Malik Monk and a whole bunch of other players, the Kings are already at 144 million. So they would have to do a lot of manipulation to get way down below the cap, even to get to the 17 million mark. They would have to do a ton. So what the good thing is that the Kings didn't use their biannual exception this year. So they will have that next year. And that's probably, I think that's going up again. And that will be a pretty substantial chunk of change, like $7 to $8 million. And then on top of that, they'll have their mid-level exception, which is around 12 million. And then the Malik Monk contract is completely separate than all those. Like, because he has early bird rights, he's like another exception to this that's hanging out there. So you can do all kinds of different things.
So, man, that was a lot. That was great stuff there, Hammer. Do you, from everything that you can gather and what you can tell by being around people in the Kings organization in the front office, do you think they look at Malik as, we used to like to say, core? Like, this is priority number one for next season. Make sure we bring back Malik Monk. Do they look at him that way?
I think they do, but I think like they probably want to see it one more year. Like, even if they want to see it half a season, like, let's make sure that like what happened last year is the same thing that will happen before. Like, Malik's like his career has been all kinds of ups and downs. Like, the last 2 seasons are really positive. He had a really good season for the Lakers and showed some promise. He had a really good season for the Kings, but let's also remember that, he averaged 13 points a game. He shot 31 point something % from 3. Like, there are plenty of things that he can do to be better, but it really does come down to this. Like, how much are you willing to pay for a 6-man? And so some teams value that 6-man over anything. And for me, like, I had written on this many years ago, I thought for years watching Jeff Petrie was always searching for Bobby Jackson. He was searching for Bobby Jackson again. So we found him with Tony Delk originally. That's the first guy that he had. And then Tony Delk he got a much bigger deal to leave.
He had Vernon Maxwell and John Barry too. Those were
exactly. And if you go back to his Portland days, he didn't really have that high flying like backup guard. He did have, really strong starters in Terry Porter and Clyde Drexler. But for me, when he got to Sacramento and he found that piece, it changed everything. It gave you that element where, we talked about this, while your starters are all doing something that's very systematic and you're watching this beautiful like art that's going on the court, you throw in a guy like Bobby Jackson and he's the ultimate disruptor, and he mixes everything up. And it's almost like when you have a third down back in the NFL and, you're plowing away, you're getting 3-4 yards of carry on the run, you're throwing small passes. And then all of a sudden you have this guy who just looks different and has a different speed and quickness, and he changes everything, and then he's gone. And so that's what I think for years we saw Petrie search for that element again. It's why he drafted Quincy Doobie. You can look at Kevin Martin, and Kevin Martin ends up being something better. Like, he was always trying to find that player. And that's exactly what they have here in Malik Monk. And as long as Malik is accepting the role as a 6-man, I think he'll be back because he loves playing with De'Aaron Fox. He loves the freedom that Mike Brown gives him to do the things that he does. But he does need to show that this wasn't like a one-time thing. And he has to get better in his job. Like, he was good last year. Like, he can be great in his role. He was great in his role in the playoffs. But like throughout the season, we're probably looking at 30, 40, 50 games where he had those moments of greatness. He needs to figure out a way to be that more consistently. But I think he is the ultimate change of pace for the Sacramento Kings that helps everything. It does.
Steeler and KC here along with James Ham on KIFM West Sacramento 98.5 FM KRX QHD2 Sacramento ESPN 1320, always live on the free Odyssey app, live on 1320 TV as well, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, wherever you are. We appreciate you for being with us.
No,
for me, it feels like what are the vibes worth?
Well, well, that goes into what are
the vibes worth?
Like, is it a situation where, because I see Aldrin in the chat, our guy Aldrin didn't say 17 is too much or is pushing it for Malik. You wouldn't give him over 17. is it a situation I think we both talked about earlier where Malik Monk is more valuable and more important to the Kings than he is to anybody else in the NBA? And because of that, you maybe overpay a little bit to keep him here.
Maybe. But I also think that people who are looking at 17 million bucks, they're not really paying attention to where the salary cap's going. So $17 million now is $12 million 2 years ago. Like the salary cap is going bonkers here. And for Malik, I don't know the exact dollar amount that's right for him. But what I think the way that I wrote it in the piece too, to give context, Harrison Barnes is set to make 17, 18, and 19 million, right? Over the next 3 years. That's 12.5%, 12.7%, and 12.2% of the salary cap, right? If you give Monk this projected 17.4, 18.8, 20.3, and 21.9 million over the 4 years that you can give him, that's basically that 175%, and then 8% raises each year. That's 12.3%, 12.6, 13%, and 13.3%. It's the same exact thing that you're giving Harrison Barnes. And so that's what my point would be. Like, you need more players that are in the range of Harrison Barnes, whether it's salary range or it's talent range. And I think you found another one in Kevin Huerter. I think you found another one in Malik Monk. You found one in Keegan Murray, where Keegan Murray, I think, our basement level, our lowest level now is we think that he'll be the equivalent of a Harrison Barnes. So yeah, you can't afford him and you do need to afford him. And these are players that take up 12, 13% of your salary cap. It's a reality of the NBA. You're going to build your team where you got two guys that are roughly making 60% of your salary cap or 50% of your salary cap. And then you have all of these other guys that have to fill in the other bubbles. And some of those bubbles are the guys that, the league minimum guys that are making 1% of the salary cap. But I think it just puts it in a different perspective that, again, if he does get that type of money, it's almost identical to what Harrison, to what Huerter, what all the guys in that price range are getting as far as percentage of the salary cap.
It's good stuff by Jesse here, pulling up the salaries of the top 6 guys and the 6-man voting. Obviously not including Malik Monk here. Malcolm Brogdon, $22 million. Emmanuel Quickley's on his rookie deal. Bobby Portis is $12. Norman Powell, $18 per year. Tyus Jones, $14 per year. And Austin Reeves, I believe this is the newly minted, $13.5 million.
Okay.
So that puts, I mean, that's the company that Malik was in. And Malik, of course, this year, 9.9. So comfortably below what those guys make. Obviously well below Malcolm Brogdon. But if a deal emerges in the vicinity of that 17 million, should he repeat this season, it would likely put him back in the 6-man of the year voting. It puts him with Malcolm, puts him in the Norman Powell range, but he has the, third highest salary on this list right here.
To me, Norman Powell's about right for the player that I think
that's
Malik
18
Monk
per.
is, and what I think he's going to be in this league. Malcolm Brogdon, we should tell the whole story on that one. He probably signed that contract as a starter for.
I think him and Norman Powell both signed those contracts as starters.
Yeah, Norman Powell started in Toronto a little bit as well, and Los Angeles. So.
Malcolm Brogdon's supposed to be a Clipper, right, Jesse?
I don't want to talk about it.
If Malcolm Brogdon was a Clipper, Marcus Smart would be a Celtic?
Yes, and we'd have Porzingis. Why are you bringing this up right now?
I'm sorry.
Ouch.
Well, and good job by Adam Silver. That sounded a little Chris Paul to the Lakers-ish, that trade. I'm glad that.
Stop it. Yeah. Will you stop?
That was pretty fishy.
Brogdon signed his deal too. Like, he was coming off the bench no matter what.
Yeah.
He signed. Oh, I'm sorry. He signed as a free agent with this. I thought it was during a trade.
I believe he was a free agent. No, it was a trade. Yeah. It was a trade. Yeah, it was a trade. You're right.
Okay.
Yeah, with Pacers, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I think my point with when I wrote this, it's not to negotiate this salary for Malik Monk. Like, Malik Monk, he's got to prove that that's who he is again, and that he might even be better than who he was last year. That's like for me to earn that type of money. The point is, this is the most the Kings can give. So, like, I'm not saying he's getting a 4-year, $76 million deal. His people will negotiate with the Sacramento Kings. That's the most they can give him as of right now.
Mhm.
And so that's a big distinction. Like if he gets 15 million a year, if he gets 14 starting salary, the number changes like dramatically.
Yeah.
The point though that I would add is that there isn't a lot of cap space. There has not been a lot of cap space for the last couple of years. And any money, this $17 million is substantially more than the mid-level exception.
Mhm.
So if someone's going to try to chase him with mid-level money, which is like a 4-year 54 or something, you have the ability to offer him much more, plus the comfort of being where he's at and where he's found a home and alongside his college buddy and all that stuff. Like there are advantages to staying in Sacramento, whether it's at 17.4 million to start or whether it's at 14 million to start. And like whatever Malik does this year will probably determine that figure. But I also don't think that like almost it's roughly $19 million a year over 4 years. That's the range. I don't think we're going to see a team come out and offer Malik Monk 30 million a year or 25 million a year.
Mhm.
Like none of that makes any sense. If he's happy in his position and what he's doing and his role with the team and the Kings are thriving and he's thriving in that role, it's a good marriage for everybody.
Well, the cap. Sorry.
I was just gonna say real quick, and also, he still needs to play well this year. But to be fair to Malik, he's done it 2 years in a row now. He's really good with the Lakers,
Well,
Mhm.
and the Lakers
Yeah.
kind of like let him go because they didn't feel they had the money. But he's had back-to-back good seasons.
and that's why I feel like the poison pill isn't a contract. It's like, bro, we could get you to 20 easily. You could start here. Like you could start here, and we think you can average 20 to 24 points per game if you come here. That's the one. Like you talk about happy in his role, like he's obviously incredible in it. But you're told, hey, we got an opportunity for you to start and for you to be a key guy here. Now, we speculated a team that might do that might not necessarily be a good one, right? Because one, cap space is probably going to be tied up in other players for the good teams.
Mhm.
And two, if you're a good team, you probably don't have a starting position open at that spot, at that particular spot. So it's all a bunch of off-season what ifs. But as you know, Kenny pointed out, a third year in a row with Malik playing like he did last year and the year before, man, that's a good look for him. How it's seen by the league, I guess we'll all find out together. But he's proven himself as a solid NBA player,
Yeah,
a really, really solid NBA player.
and I'll keep saying this to you guys. The key to all of this, it was giving up Rashawn Holmes. Because that 12 and a half or $13 million that he's owed next season comes back to play right here. If the Kings are before a whole bunch of low-level contracts are already at $144 million in cap space, go ahead and throw Rashawn Holmes' contract on top of that, and you're already at almost 160. And that's a lot of money. It changes the complexity of everything. So I know a lot of people are upset that they gave up their first round draft pick to move Rashawn Holmes. It really, really doesn't just play this season out. It plays next season as well when all of a sudden you have, a lot more room to retain a guy like this. And not only retain a guy like this, but if you need, go out and use the biannual exception at like 7-8 million bucks. Go out and use a mid-level exception at 12, 13 million bucks and go add another player or two. And so it really does. There are a lot of ways in which this one move of clearing out Holmes' salary really will impact things long term.
That's crazy. So like they can re-sign Malik Monk and still use the biannual and add another player that way.
And still use a mid-level. The mid-level is
Yeah.
bigger. It's the bigger of the two. You can still use all of those things. And they won't have a first round draft pick, most likely. If they make the playoffs, they don't have a first round draft pick. So you don't have that salary coming in as well. It's why drafting a player like Colby Jones and then signing him to a 4-year contract, the last 2 years, which are non-guaranteed, but that 4-year deal, like whatever Colby Jones does this year, it doesn't really matter. Like you also will consider him a rookie pretty much next year as well, because there's a good chance he's not going to play that much. And 21 years old this year, 22 years old next year, if you consider that as one of your first round picks, like an equivalent of a first round pick next year as well, it's not a bad way to think of it.
Does the cap? At what point do you think the cap, and not like the maneuvering of mid levels or early bird rights or things like that, but like going over the cap and where the Kings are in terms of their spending? At what point is that a conversation in the front office?
It's about the luxury tax. Like, when do you approach the luxury tax? And in order for this team to reach the luxury tax, it's going to be like, you have to weigh that. Like, how good are we and how can we go for it? So, again, for instance, like this season, let's say we get to mid-season and the Toronto Raptors aren't playing well, but you see that, and so you got OG Anunoby, and OG Anunoby's making 18 million bucks. You have 2 or 3 players in that price range that you can trade for him and go get him. But then you're looking at this coming off season, and a player, let's say like Harrison Barnes, who's scheduled to make 18 million bucks for next season, not this season, next season. Well, can you take on a player like OG who is at 18, but the next season is probably going to want to raise to 30 and still afford to pay that 17 million bucks to Malik Monk?
Oh.
So now what you're looking at is going from 144 to, what is that, 161. And then on top of that, can we add another 12 million? So now we're at 173. And then we got to, add 3 or 4 lower salary players. We're at 180 million. We're starting to approach luxury tax. We're in the luxury tax. That's when you have to look and say, how good is my team? When is it that we will go and take this leap? And the one good thing that Monty McNair has done is he's really set himself up where, like, he has his base set up. Like, his guys are locked in. 3 years from now, he's going to have to make a decision on how much money Keegan Murray's going to make. Sometimes that situation,
all of it.
Well, but sometimes that situation figures itself out,
right,
because
if he's there's a max on that, right? Like the rookie extension, like
there is.
You don't have a choice in some cases.
My point would be this, though. Like, go back to 2017, 2018. They draft De'Aaron. 2018, they draft Marvin. They all of a sudden had started planning ahead 3 years out, and were planning how much money they had to give Marvin
Cantonella,
and how much money they had to give De'Aaron Fox, and they were trying to build their team around that idea. Well, Marvin Bagley ended up fixing that problem for them. So you no longer had that giant dollar figure, and I don't think that that's going to be the case with Keegan. Keegan is going to keep earning, and he's going to probably be a really high level player. But you have to keep that in the back of your mind when you're signing all these contracts now. And that's why we see Trey Lyles getting a 2-year deal. And it's why we see Sasha Vezenkov get a 3-year deal with the last year as a team option. It's because we're going to get to a point where this salary starts to balloon, and you have to see at what point is your team good enough or not good enough to keep going at this pace. How do we make changes? How do we save money here and there? And that's why everyone doesn't get paid. That's the way it works. Not everyone gets paid. And sometimes you got to back off. Now, also, the salary cap is going up astronomically. Like, I think we're talking after this year, it goes up like 10% a year, something like that is close. So it's going to be like the salary cap is skyrocketing. That's before the real money even hits the new television money, which we don't know what it is yet, but it's going to be astronomical. And so, like, salary cap is going to be ridiculous. And someone like Malik Monk making 17 million bucks is going to seem like a bargain. Just like right now, a starting level shooting guard like Kevin Huerter making 16 million bucks. Like, he's a really good value. Like, he is.
Get in those pockets, Vivek Lakeup. Just in case.
Hey, my boy Uncle
Just
V.
in case.
He gonna spend the money. Uncle V gonna spend the money.
He does strike me as a guy who I mean, James, you've outlined this before, how badly he wants to win. And if he sees a winner in this roster, I could absolutely see him.
He was willing to spend when he didn't see a winner.
Well,
there always comes a point, though, where you have to look at
spending on the suggestions of Monty McNair is probably a good idea.
Yeah,
Right.
it's the long-term viability of your game plan. Like, some players fit into that, some don't. And some teams make huge mistakes when they're putting this thing together, and they go out and they chase these monster free agents, like the Atlanta Hawks. They get into this situation where they got to pay John Collins. They had to give him this 4-year, $100 million extension. But on top of that, they go out and they give Gallinari 60 million bucks or 70 million bucks. They go out and they give Bogdanovich 72 million bucks and then double down on that. And all of a sudden you're looking at your salary cap. You trade for Clint Capella and you got to pay Trae Young, and then you trade for DeJounte Murray. You're going to have to pay him. And all of a sudden you're looking like there is no light at the end of the tunnel, and we're absolutely dead how are we going to get out of this while trying to fill a competitive team? And the answer is there's not a way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the other side, different sport is the Rams.
Yeah.
The Rams, they somehow, I don't know, I guess they didn't have a salary cap.
No, they didn't. And they just kept getting picks.
They kept getting just player upon player upon player upon player, where you look at this and go like, wow, this could really work for a year or two. And to their credit, it did. It worked for a year. That was it. Like, in my opinion, it's over. This version of the Los Angeles Rams is over. And you talk about, well, how do you get out of it? They got to bottom out. Like you've got to see, I'm of the belief if Stafford's healthy, they're probably going to be okay. I'm just not confident that he is. Aaron Donald's clearly nearing retirement. He's flirted with it for 2 years, but getting out of that mess is really difficult. But you opened yourself of a window of a couple of years to win a Super Bowl. That's what they did. Hopefully, with NBA franchises, they want to do, the blueprint is what the Golden State Warriors did. You open up a window with so many pieces that you find ways to sustain it. Just when you think it might run out, well, it's unfair to use them as an example because of the Steph Curry contract.
They had like 3 fortunate.
Well, they had the Steph Curry contract, who signed a fair market deal and then became the best player on the planet, which allowed them to land Kevin Durant because Steph Curry was making, in comparison to what he was doing, peanuts.
And wasn't the Kevin Durant year, wasn't that like, there was like a 1 year, some type of loophole, that free agency that allowed that?
It was the last free agency that it could have worked. Yeah.
On top of what you said.
Yeah.
There was something else crazy.
That was the last free agency because something changed. I don't remember if it was the cap or what it was, but something changed to where, that wouldn't have worked the following year.
Craziness.
It's Draymond Green. He knew it. He forced us. Shout out to Draymond Green, the genius, in the parking lot after Game 7. This is the only year we could pull it off, KD. Come on, man. I'm gonna run your ass out of here in 4 years, but come on, man. Come through.
When you look at it, though, you have to have the base. You have to have at least like a handful of positions covered on your team, guys that are locked in, guys that are under contract, that you know exactly, who you're dealing with. And then can you upgrade one of these positions? Can you upgrade the peripheral positions and make your team better? And as you get better as a team, more free agents would like to come play for you. The players that wouldn't consider you in the past or wouldn't consider taking way low money to come play for your team, now they start to consider it. And that's when you look at like the Golden State Warriors, it's Steph, it's Clay, it's Draymond. Then they add KD, which was almost the interchangeable piece from the Harrison Barnes piece that was there before. Like it was more money, but realistically, you're still looking at a 4. And then can we get David West to come in and play for 2 years and provide something for us, but for basically nothing? Can we get Livingston to take a lower role here? Can we get Iguodala to be here? Those are the things where you have to start adding these other pieces. But the first thing you have to have is a core, because if you don't have a core and all of these other pieces are more like the end all be all for your team, then you're in trouble. And that's where just go back to the 2016 Sacramento Kings, where you bring in, or 15, whatever it is, where you bring in a Costa Koufos and Marco Bellinelli and Rondo. You bring all these guys in, but you didn't have the system, the players in place to make those players work. You thought you did, but the thing that failed wasn't those players. The thing that failed was your core. Your core failed first, and those players weren't good enough to change the trajectory of your team.
So with that being said, James, you're going to hate me for asking this question.
Uh-oh.
And I'm tongue-in-cheek asking it, half serious, half joking. Jesse knows where I'm going. How do the Kings get Giannis? What does that look like? Half serious, half joking. Like, what is, like, if they said they wanted to do that, can they do that?
Well, the easy answer is no. Like I've told you guys this before. The best free agent the Sacramento Kings have ever signed in their,
He'd be a trade.
Are we 38 years in? The best free agent they've ever signed. If we're talking trade, that's different. But even still, I don't think that there's a way to do that without gutting half your team. But as a free agent, which is how KD was brought in, like the only way that happens is I don't. You have to clear so much space, and he would have to take way less money. It would
It'd
just
be Giannis and Alex Lynn
It just doesn't make any
in the
sense.
Western Conference.
It'd be Keegan, Kevin, Davion, Harrison for Giannis.
Yeah. So again, my point would be the best free agent the Kings have ever signed is Vlade Divac. It's the best free agent they've ever signed. The second best is probably George Hill.
I only bring it up because we haven't talked about it for the 3 days.
Malik has a potential to be better than some.
Well, Malik's tenure as a King is already better than George Hill's was. Like George Hill, and I'm absolutely not critical of him for this.
Yeah.
He wanted out 20 games into the season. Like,
No.
and I don't disagree with the context of why he was upset. Like I totally get it, but like George Hill didn't work as a King.
No. But my point is that George Hill coming into the Kings was like a 30-year-old guard who averaged 17.5 points per game the previous year and was really good.
Sure.
And then you were able to get him. That's like the biggest name. Like signing Vince Carter at like 39 or 40 years old. Or Zebo at 35, 36. To me, those aren't like legitimate building something free agent signings. George Hill was supposed to be something. He doesn't work out to be that. But name-wise, when you landed George Hill, that actually said, okay, we're a team that could go out and land somebody.
So the reason why I say Jesse would understand what I'm talking about is because we've had these talks, and I agree with Jesse. He says this, and he's right. Like, the Kings are good right now. I think we believe in it, and Jesse, you can speak for yourself too, but I think we believe they're like for real good. Their next, like when they make moves, it shouldn't be to get George Hill no more. It should be go after the big fish. Like, and the reason why I bring up Giannis, we've tried to talk about it for the last 4 days, but Trey wants to get traded, and then we're talking about all this other stuff. But it's starting to look funny in Milwaukee with Giannis. He's the next big fish that's probably going to be out there. And why can't the Kings be a team that gets involved in, hey, he's got 2 years left on his deal. We'll make a deal for him. He would want to come here. Like that's what's next. It shouldn't be George Hill no more. It should be guys like that.
No, I'm with you. I understand what you're saying. I mean, even like I talk about this all the time, the OG trade. Like you look at most rankings and OG Anunoby's like the 14th best small forward. That's not what should be a groundbreaking trade. Now, for the Kings, it might be something that is franchise altering because of his defensive prowess and of how he would fit and all that stuff. It could work out and be great. But that's still like what you're talking about. Like, don't get me OG, don't get me this guy who's around 40. Go get me Donovan Mitchell. Like if we're talking about a trade, go get me player X that can take my team from this level to this level, or from this level to this level.
Yeah.
And that's where you're probably close to that point, but you also have to mind all these other things like the salary cap and all the, like it's much more complex than it sounds.
Right.
Let's just point out, you bringing up Giannis at this point is less ridiculous than James Ham bringing up OG Anunoby in Toronto.
No, they're not trading anybody until midseason.
If you told me to put my
forever.
money on a trade happening, it would be Giannis to the Kings before OG Anunoby to anyone. Masai Ujiri's like, yeah, come on, go ahead, come on.
Masai not even trading Boucher at this point. Like,
yeah, but
he's just doing it on principle. He's just going to let contracts expire and let guys leave.
Well, he'll be a free agent at the end of the year. And that's the problem that we talked about with the Malik Monk thing. You can't go sign OG Anunoby. Your window for signing players is now over. You could do a sign and trade and you could give up something to go get him. But your window to go out and sign players, it ended this summer when they took all that money and gave it to Harrison Barnes and gave it to Domantas Sabonis. It's over now. So now what we are talking about is being able to sign your own free agent on early bird rights, a mid-level exception, a biannual exception, taking one or two of your players with a bunch of draft picks and moving them for a much better player. That's where we're at.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. OJ still ain't getting traded. Neither is Siakam.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what Masai's doing.
Who's their coach again? Who'd they hire?
I forgot.
It was like it was a totally out of
wasn't
nowhere
it the
hire
Bucks-
because
the
it
Bucks
was
assistant?
we kept hearing, yo,
Hmm.
Jordy's got a strong. No, he went to
Charles Lee. Is that who you're thinking?
No, it was
It's,
somebody's
it's
assistant.
Darko Rajakovic.
There it is.
Oh.
Yeah, he came around third base late in the game.
Who did I think the Bucks hired. I was thinking who the brother goes
Was that
to?
Adrian?
Yeah, it might have been Adrian.
Adrian Griffith. Yeah,
That's
he
what I was
went to the
thinking.
Bucks.
That's who the Bucks hired.
Yeah.
Okay, and Darko was an assistant there last year,
Hmm.
I think. Yeah.
That's pretty wild that because if they've made 2 in-house hires their last 2 coaching changes.
Hmm.
Because that was Nick
Oh,
Nurse
no,
to
no.
Dwayne Casey.
I'm wrong. He was in
Okay.
Memphis. He was in Memphis
Okay.
last 3 years.
Okay.
That's my bad. For some reason, they have like a coaching record for him in Toronto. Like, I'm not sure what that is.
I wonder if they're watching Jordy and hitting themselves with a little whoopsie because
Man,
enjoy this. We should just start calling this Jordy Fernandez's last year with the Sacramento Kings.
last dance.
The last dance.
Yeah, what if they
indeed.
win?
Oh,
Oh,
no, he's leaving. Yeah, Jordy's gonna be a head coach next year.
I wonder where he's gonna go.
I think he will be a head coach next year.
Yeah,
Well,
he's
he's gonna. You know what? He should have his choice of a couple of good jobs. Like that's like hopefully.
Yeah,
it's
you know
not-
what?
The Clippers, maybe.
That's the one I was thinking of right there. He could be the head coach of the Los Angeles Clippers next year. I don't know what the Clippers look like
Yeah.
next year,
Yeah.
but yeah, Jordy could be the coach. I mean, we'll find out, and we won't find out. That's not true. We might have a good idea of what the Clippers look like moving forward in like a week.
Mm.
Because isn't that we've got extension eligibility coming up within the next like 10 days for some of these guys.
Oof.
Clippers.
And Kawhi's one of them. Paul George, I think, is already extension eligible. If he's not, it's vice versa. One of them is, and the other one will be in the upcoming days.
Maybe.
That's rough.
Trying to think of what.
How much do you pay a 33-year-old Paul George?
Might go to Cleveland.
Paul George?
No, Jordy Fernandez.
Oh, Jordy Fernandez. What? Well, why are you?
I'm
Who's
not
that? JB?
trying- Yeah, I'm not trying to. I'm
Why are
saying
you trying to put JB out of a job?
I'm not trying to. I've heard.
I got Cleveland at number 2.
I've heard. I've just heard.
JB's out?
I've heard he's got to do good this year.
Oh,
Oh, poor
Well, I'll tell
JB
you-
Bickerstaff. Goodness gracious.
do you remember that's where Jordy got his start? He was
Oh yeah, well, Mike Brown.
Mike Brown brought
Yeah.
him over from to train his son as
So-
a basketball trainer.
Okay. Question then. If you're Jordy and JB is out and there's these rumors around Donovan Mitchell, because I think I think he's another extension eligible player. Is that a job you want if Donovan leaves?
Eh,
I don't know, man. You got Garland, you got Mobley.
Well, Kenny hates Evan Mobley.
What? See,
We established that about an
he's
hour ago.
just-
Kenny hates Evan Mobley.
He's just not the 11th best big man in the game.
He's not. He's like the 8th.
He's not.
It's like maybe the 9th or 8th.
He's absolutely.
Domas is the 5th. Bam is the 6th. I give you Cat at 7.
James, who you think is better, Evan Mobley or DeAndre Ayton?
Like if I was starting a team, I would take
Today.
Mobley, but I think today Ayton is probably better.
Majority
Nah,
rules.
it's not convincing. That's not convincing.
I
Jesse, who's better, Evan Mobley or DeAndre Ayton?
DeAndre Ayton.
Oh, the hell with both of you. It's
Without a
the-
second thought.
I don't know.
It's the D-Lo show. We'll be back here with more on D-Lo Sports Leader.
Sports
It's ESPN 1320.
Siakam got mentioned earlier. He's not going to get traded because he's telling teams he won't sign an extension with them.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
Siakam don't
I
want
don't
to
blame
leave.
him.
I don't think he wants to leave Toronto.
He'll
Well,
be
he might
loved
not
there
have
forever.
a choice, though.
I
Like,
don't know that
your
he-
contract can expire. Doesn't mean you get to stay there. Like,
Is that true?
Yeah, but I don't know that it's that they want to be there. They all have really, really strong ties to Masai for sure, right? Like really, really strong ties. But that doesn't mean that
well, he
he's
goes to
gonna
bat
be there
for him. He's
forever.
not trading him.
Yeah.
And what if he goes somewhere else? Do you like? Does he
Masai?
take a bunch of these dudes with him? Yeah. What if he leaves this summer and goes somewhere else, and all of a sudden you see him take his guys and they follow with him?
I don't know. Hey, are you going to dinner?
I don't think I can.
Okay. I don't want to.
Uh-oh.
With
Do
all
they-
due
do
with
they-
all due
Do
respect.
they have a location?
It's downtown.
Mm.
Yeah, it's downtown. I'll just leave it
I
at that.
could
It's
check with the
downtown.
boss, but
I don't want to go, bro. With all due respect, I'll ask Complex if it's something he needs us to do. But
Yikes! It's a long day for you guys.
It's,
I mean, I
this
don't
type
have a
of stuff
problem
is
with it,
just
but
part of the. It's just part of the game, but
Yeah.
not this particular date. You know what I mean? Not this particular dinner date. It's like, oh, come on, man. But it's not. It's the label. The label's the important part. So I'll ask Complex. Like, if you need us, if you need me, one of us, I'll do it.
You going to the football game?
What football game?
The email.
Oh no! I
Oh,
haven't
for
seen-
fuck's sake! Yeah, yeah.
Hey,
I'm at the point where I'm
the
about to
response
save.
was hilarious.
I'm about to save people from themselves. Y'all just out here focused on the
Response
wrong
was
shit.
hilarious. Oh man. Hey, Matt, I already said where I got the shirt from. I'm not saying it again.
Wow, wow.
I'm messing with you, man.
Wow, man.
Artistic
I would tell
Tella
you.
on Instagram. It's all one. Well, their Instagram is all one word. Artistic Tella.
I might
One
have to,
L.
might have to cop something from there.
You guys see Celtics great Eric Lewis retired today after his social media investigation.
Oh man.
Yes.
Wait, what
Jeez.
happened?
Eric Lewis retired.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't see that.
You just can't have
Damn,
that as
bruh.
part of the league. You can't. I mean,
Mitch McConnell really bringing back the mannequin challenge.
man, that did not look
Oh.
good. The worst part is like,
How's no one said, hey, you know what? Maybe we should do something about this.
Oh.
Someone has, but they don't care.
but the same like the response would be, well, what about Dianne Feinstein?
No, that's right too.
Yeah, I totally agree. But
this
like,
isn't party neutral.
no, I totally. But it's horrible. Did you see what they did today? He fully pauses and bewildered, and then he snaps out of it, and they're like, "Okay, does anyone else have a question?"
Oh my
Come
god.
on,
They
bro,
start
man.
answering questions again.
Come on.
What are we
man.
doing?
Politics is a wild game.
No,
on, man.
get him to an emergency room instantly.
Awful.
Shocking.
And
Awful.
this guy, no disrespect to him, but he's supposed to be making decisions.
Oh, no disrespect, my ass. Fuck him. Talking about
He's
no
supposed-
He's
disrespect.
supposed to be making decisions.
Dude is awful.
Yeah.
How is this
Guy isn't
happening when no one's around?
Look, man, this guy's not even coherent half the
This,
time.
this happened in the middle of a Senate session.
Today with him was in the middle of a
No, I'm
He-
saying, what if this happens in the middle
Oh.
of a Senate session? Y'all just gonna
Right.
ignore it and keep it moving?
Right.
yeah. Oh, I don't know.
They're awful, man. Shout out Vivek and Nani. They're at Harry Potter and the Cursed Child
Oh, big ups.
in London.
Wow. Oh, yeah, that was stunning to watch. I watched it earlier and it's just like you're like, oh, come on, little fella.
What did I try? Oh, I wanted to look up artistic. There it is.
Wait, 49ers Hall of Famer Joe Montana says Tom Brady isn't the GOAT and that Dan Marino is.
That's right, Joe. And he's better than you two.
Oh, Dan.
Wow.
Dan is.
He revolutionized
He's-
the game.
Throw Dan on the Niners, they win the Super Bowl every year. Throw Joe on the Dolphins, they don't ever win a Super Bowl.
Well, he wasn't.
Wow. Jesse Tapia's world, man. We're just living in it. We're just living in it.
The mic ain't turned off. It don't matter. He didn't play for the 49ers.
No
It
one-
is what it is.
I'm just saying, your GOAT is on my side.
He's wrong. There's a Joe is.
Okay.
Joe's not even a go. So there's that. But Joe, he's saying some funny stuff sometimes.
James, would you like to explain how this conversation started?
Yeah.
I blame you for it.
It is my fault. I guess according to TMZ, I believe it was that Joe Montana says Tom Brady isn't the GOAT and that Dan Marino is.
He's wrong.
Put Dan Marino in today's game where he gets free release and his receivers, holy cow.
Well,
He
doesn't-
would throw
Well
for,
put, Joe.
Well, I mean, if in 1984 he threw for 5,000 yards and 48 touchdowns.
That's a wild stat.
And,
Yeah, that's one of the
crazy.
more wilder NFL
Crazy
stats.
season.
and no one else came close to that for another 2 decades.
Mm.
Like it wasn't until like 2004, 2005 we started seeing these types of numbers. And Like what he was able to do was incredible. Like, and he didn't even have all of the pieces that you have now. I mean, like Roger Craig is busy revolutionizing the running back position, but what did he have? Like Nat Moore out of the backfield. You know,
Yeah.
he didn't have the big tight end. He had okay tight. You had Clayton and Duper, but he didn't even have like really a third wide receiver. You can't come up with a third wide receiver on that team.
He never had a running back. Never really had
Okay.
a defense.
Everything
All
you guys
right.
are saying
All
is
right.
true. Life
Hang
ain't
on.
fair.
Hang on a
Life
second.
isn't fair.
Who was the tight end?
Fair.
Was it Dan Jansen?
I don't even know.
Who cares?
Wasn't it
Life
the
ain't
guy
fair.
wasn't the guy from Webster on that team?
What is
He was on
Webster?
the Lions.
Alex Karras? No.
I hate you.
I'm being serious. I don't know what Webster is.
Yeah, he
Forget
went
it.
no
Oh,
way.
no.
Oh, I know. I just
It's
forget
Alex
it.
Karras, but no.
He wasn't on the Dolphins?
No.
He was on the
Oh.
Lions.
A bunch of
Oh, the
guys look
Lions.
like Bob Kuchenberg and
Oh,
some of those guys. They
There are a
look like-
lot of guys that look like Alex
Yeah.
Karras for sure. Can I point one thing out? Dan Marino had like 3 supernatural years.
Mm.
Had a really good like 3 out of 4 stretch. He was fine after that.
Like I don't.
He was fine.
I really
Like,
don't understand all this Dan Marino propaganda. Like,
Well, I
he
think-
was,
well,
he
I-
was an all-time great.
I think it's
No,
the
he was not the all-time best quarterback. It's okay to say that.
I think it's the 48, 30, 44, the 5,000, 4,100, and 4,700 in a 3-year stretch. That's what I think it
Phenomenal.
is.
For me,
Phenomenal. It's okay that he's not the greatest ever. He's still one of the greatest to do it.
I think the point to this though is that those seasons, the game was so different, and he
Ooh.
was such an outlier.
Joe
I mean,
Montana's numbers don't even sniff that.
oh no. Well, that's the era though, where guys, if you threw for 3,500 yards, it was a miracle. Like that's everyone else is throwing for 26 to 3,200 yards, and then Dan Marino goes off for 5,000. Yeah, I mean, watching him was like he was spectacular. His release and everything. And in today's game, I mean, he'd basically be Peyton Manning and maybe a little bit better.
Marino, he doesn't rank higher than John Elway.
Oh no, just because he didn't win championships. No, like Marino was a better quarterback than Elway. Elway was a better runner. You know,
Yeah, I mean,
and he won.
He had the arm too.
Yeah.
I think they're together. They're on the same plane. And if you have to make a distinction between one or the other, you got to give it to the chips.
I feel
But I
like
think
John
they're
Elway's
together.
career completely changed with his last 2 years. I'm sorry, not his career,
His legacy and all that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
before
for
that,
sure.
he was just the lovable loser because he hadn't won. I mean,
He'd been there a lot, right? That was the thing. He had been
He'd been to the
been
Super Bowl, I think,
around.
twice.
Yeah.
Lost to the 49ers both times?
No, he lost to the Redskins another time. He might have lost 3 times. I think he lost to the Niners, Redskins, and Giants, I believe.
Yeah, he like if
Oh,
you
the
look at that era,
Giants.
I think what separates him, like
Is that Parcells?
Jim Kelly
Yeah, they're
kind
only
of goes in the
legitimate
same.
Super Bowl.
Yeah, Jim Kelly, you kind of throw in the same boat. That's how Elway would have been thought of
Mm.
if he hadn't finished so strong. With
That's
last
a
year.
shame too, because I feel like that's the first thing you think about with Jim Kelly.
Yeah,
The
Four?
4 Super Bowls. Yeah.
Yeah.
The 4 Super Bowls that he did not win.
Marino's an all-time great.
It's like I know you're talking about Montana. Like it's Brady, right? Though that's done. Like that's done. That's not a conversation anymore.
Yeah,
It's Brady. Yeah.
It's Brady, and Mahomes is on the fast track.
Yeah,
I look at
definitely is.
Mahomes like I look at LeBron and the GOAT thing. I've said LeBron doesn't have to win 7 titles to be the greatest of all time. I always
Mahomes.
said if he gets 4, we can have the conversation. He's got 4.
Mahomes has the ability to do those Marino numbers in Montana titles. I don't know that anybody's getting to 7 Super Bowls. That's pretty wild.
I'll
but
tell you like this. If Mahomes gets 1 more, we can have the conversation
about the greatest of all
about
time.
the greatest of all time.
Man, Brady played 20 years though.
Yeah.
Mahomes
And
has
it's
to
not
do-
even Super Bowls. Like Brady was really good
He
last
was- he was
year.
really good.
I think Mahomes has to do it longer too, because Brady's got the all-time stats too.
There's a
Yeah.
there's a longevity thing that has to play a part in this. It's kind of like my argument with LeBron.
Yeah.
Like LeBron has been a top 6, whatever the Athletic decide. Like he's been a top 6 player in the league for 20 years. That's gotta have value.
There is an element of, and I'm not saying he doesn't deserve the titles or whatever, but Tom Brady, the defense carried him in a couple of those championships.
Oh,
I mean,
and at least 3 of them.
I mean,
he's got 7, so it's whatever. But in at least 3 of them.
well, yeah, but I always put, like, if I'm looking at the great statistical quarterbacks of all time, I'm gonna go like Dan Marino, Peyton Manning. I like even Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees. I probably put Drew Brees number 3 in that, and then Aaron Rodgers. If I'm looking at the greatest quarterbacks, the greatest winners of all time, I think Brady has moved ahead of him, but then it's Joe. Like those dudes were just flat. So whether a defense helped win a game or not, like Tom Brady won almost every single one of those Super Bowls. Like he found a way to come up with something that won him, just like Joe Montana did. And so, like, I don't know. I have a tough time. Like,
well, I'm talking about that in respects more so to Patrick Mahomes and what he has to do. Patrick Mahomes wins a Super Bowl or 2 more, like he's
in the conversation.
Like it's like, because I'm of the belief, like I said with LeBron and Jordan, LeBron didn't have to win 7 titles for me to consider him better than Michael Jordan. And Patrick Mahomes, just because I'm watching.
So you think LeBron's better than Michael Jordan?
I haven't decided that yet. Right now, I got Jordan there. But I said the conversation could happen once he gets 4. He's there. He's at 4. We can have the conversation. Mahomes, just because I'm watching this guy, I'm watching him for his entire career, and it just looks like something I've never seen before. And if he gets 4, let's just say 4 Super Bowls, right there, you can make the argument he's the greatest we've ever seen.
I think there's a really fascinating component too about how long Andy Reid is with them, because Brady and Belichick were tied at the hip for 6 of those 7, right? And Brady shown he could be a really, really, really good quarterback, and then a Super Bowl quarterback without Bill Belichick. The match of Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid it's Macho Man and Elizabeth. It's a match made in heaven. It's perfect. I didn't know Tom Brady's full name was Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. I knew I knew his dad's name was Tom Brady, but I always thought that their names were just Tom Brady and Tom Brady. I didn't know that there was a junior on his name that he just doesn't use.
Mentioned before, that's like me. I got the same name as my dad,
but
I'm not a junior.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought Brady was. I didn't think there was a junior.
He doesn't have a middle
Vince
name.
McMahon doesn't have a junior. Vince McMahon's not a junior.
They got different middle names.
And he hates it when people call him junior.
Hey, go make Dallas's life a living hell. What'd he say?
No, he said go ruin their day. Go ruin their day, guys. And he says it with like a smile. Go ruin Dallas's day. All right, Tom. He's like so awkward. He's got his hands in his pockets. All right, Tom. That's not the motivational speech those quarterbacks were looking for. Come on, man.
Hey, James. Where's my boy JaVale McKee getting here?
That is a great question.
Okay, so
introduce him with Sasha tomorrow if you have any nuts at all.
If he's standing in the back, and be like,
"Hey, is waivers over? By the way, what is it? 72 hours?
It's 20. Isn't it 24?
I don't know. I just know
he might not have been waived yet. By the way, it could have been plans to waive.
Have we looked at the NBA transaction? And hey, I want to give him a shout out to Mark Stein, who was like 3 weeks before everyone else.
He was. That's why
he was a week and a half.
Why are they reporting this? Didn't this already happen? And
it did already happen because Mark Stein had said it was going to happen repeatedly. Right. Yeah. Okay. So, look, there's a lot of ties here. Let's not be, Luke Lauk's coach.
He was waived. He was waived yesterday.
Let's go. Make it happen tomorrow.
Yeah. So I'm going to guess that something like that probably won't take too long. Like there's a possibility of something like that. And look, we've talked about this before. We have all these big men, right, that the Kings have brought in. So we're talking Alex Len, Nerlens Noel, Nehemias Queta, and how are they going to compete against each other? What was the one thing I kept telling you guys that I didn't love about this group? Is remember
interior defense?
No.
Oh,
they couldn't separate each other.
No, it's that none of them play the style that
the lob threat
that Malik Monk needs. The lob threat. The lob threat. And that is JaVale McGee in a nutshell. Not only is he a shot
I'm sorry.
blocker
Explain to me again why
extraordinaire.
Rashawn didn't work out.
Because
Isn't that literally what Rashawn's job is? To catch balls at the rim.
yeah, but it
Awesome.
it didn't work out because he couldn't figure out how to play
Okay,
in the
I got you.
system.
We don't have to talk about that. It's just like I
Yeah.
got to point out you had a guy who like made a living with Tyrese Halliburton the year before.
But you weren't going to
catching the ball
hope
at the
that he
rim.
would be able to
I got
do
you.
the same thing this year for $12 million sitting on your bench.
Well,
So look again, Chimezi Metu. Look how well he worked with Malik Monk.
mm-hmm.
How many of his plays came straight up on a Malik Monk drive and kick?
Yeah,
and it's something that I think this team needs. Like they have to figure that out. And we can argue all day whether JaVale McGee is better than the other three guys, but the answer is he probably is.
Yeah.
Like whether he still got a bunch of game left in him or not, I don't know. I don't think he can play alongside Domantas Sabonis because he can't stretch the floor at all.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a guy that Mike Brown coached in Golden State. It's a guy that Luke Laux coached in Golden State and was part of a staff in Phoenix with JaVale McGee. Did you guys have the professor Jason Jones?
We did.
JaVale McGee is his all-time
Yeah, it is
favorite.
his guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people forget too, like JaVale McGee grew up a lot here in Sacramento. His mom Pam McGee was part of the Monarchs for years. Like he knows this area, at least as a little person. Like he was around this area.
So I'm
still waiting for
curious.
that Fridays over there on the Thomas
well,
Boulevard.
the
Over there
sign
right
is
off
up right
truck.
now.
So
He's a UNR guy, right?
TGI Friday's coming.
JaVale?
it's on his way.
So both of you guys can maybe answer this one. Where does the Chris Haynes report come from, in your guys' opinion? Is that from the Kings, or is that JaVale's people saying, I have interest, or there's mutual interest, and I want to let the Kings know? No, I'm serious. I would consider.
Well, it could also
where's
be.
that coming from?
It could also be. And James, chime in. It could be JaVale's people saying, "We've talked to Sacramento, or Sacramento. We know Sacramento has interest." Could be that.
Because that was the only team that came out yesterday.
I think
It was.
I
I would be surprised.
I don't think Monty called Chris, if that's what you're asking. Was like, "Hey, put it out there."
Maybe West did. My boy West said, "Go, Chris.
I just
We've been talking, big dog."
Hey, I got a bubble vest waiting for you if you put this out there.
That's
my boy Wes Wilcox.
That's not how this front office works.
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean that this thing isn't going to happen. So I would put the likelihood at high. I'll just leave it at that.
In all seriousness, I think JaVale McGee would be the best backup big on the roster right now. I think he fits great with the things that you talk about, James. He checks off all the boxes for what I feel this team is looking for in that position. A guy that's not, you're not asking him to play 25 minutes. He's probably going to play 12 to 15 minutes a night and just come in there, be a big body, be a rim protector, finish around the rim. I think he fits that perfectly. I would love to have JaVale McGee on this team.
Yeah, I'd even say, like, the thing about JaVale is it's not really 12 to 13 minutes a night because Trey Lyles is probably going to be the backup center on this team. What it is those games where either you have foul trouble or you are getting destroyed by a big man that keeps going over the top, or your guards are really struggling to stop the dribble drive. And you need someone to go in and play goalkeeper.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, JaVale's 35 years old, but he knows what his job is.
Yeah.
Like that's like, he's very refined in what he does. And like the Golden State Warriors offense over the last, during their heyday is one of the most complex offenses that you're going to run, that you're going to run into. And JaVale did just fine. Like he can think through the game and like, he's an instinct guy, but you don't have anyone like him. Like I would say, to tell you that Nerlens Noel is like him, but like Nerlens Noel has never been able to stay healthy and do the things that JaVale has been able to successfully do.
Yeah.
Does someone get cut if he gets signed? You don't have to do that yet, right?
Right now, no. So right now, the Kings roster stands after the Scalabiciere addition. It stands at 16 players.
I forgot about Scal.
Yeah, so we got 16 players and 2 two-way players. So you're
16,
at
17, 18.
and you can go up to 21. So I expect Jordan Ford to be in training camp. So that puts you at 19. So if you had JaVale, that puts you at 20. You still have one more position to bring in somebody else. So yeah.
No bonuses or salary thing kick into effect until after camp.
Well, it depends. Like, I mean, every player is getting paid during camp.
Well, of course.
It depends on the player. So, like, Nemias Queta has 250,000 guaranteed for showing up to camp, 500,000 who makes opening night roster. Nerlens Noel is 300,000 for coming to camp, an additional 600,000 if he makes opening night roster.
And then they have, are there roster bonuses for them? That's a weird term to use in basketball, but like February 2nd.
No, they have until I think it's January 9th or January 10th. I had
Okay.
the date. Like, that's the day that all NBA contracts become fully guaranteed.
Got you. Okay.
And so if you get your 300,000 for making the camp and another 600,000 for making the opening night roster, you're at 900,000. But then your salary is prorated over an entire season. By the time you get to January 10th or whatever, your salary is basically half of the year's salary. And so they have to either guarantee the second half or not guarantee the second half.
And for JaVale, in a situation that might involve Sacramento, we're talking and
League minimum.
Yeah, I was going to say we're talking a contract like Nerlens Noel. Like, he's coming off. I think it was 5 with a player option for 6, or maybe it was 6 with a player option for 5. Like, he's not sniffing anything like that.
No, I would say if JaVale McGee is signed, number one, it's probably guaranteed money. Probably.
Okay.
Not positive. So the Kings, he has a player option this year for $6 million. They stretch provisioned him. So actually he's got 5.7 and then 6. So
he's getting paid no matter what.
Yeah, so he's getting paid $11.7 million over the next, well, it's supposed to be this year and next, because he's got 2 years. The stretch provision by NBA standards is they give you twice a year's of the salary plus 1. So they're going to take his salary of, $12.7 million, and they're going to break it up over 5 years. So that's the way it's going to go. That's how it's going to count against the cap.
Two and some change or something.
Yeah,
like that.
And then on top of that, they will get at least some sort of discount if he does sign with another team off of the salary.
Okay.
So the player doesn't get both. They do get partially both, but they also, like the stretch provision, it will always count that much against the cap.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, I wouldn't be surprised, but I also think that if you're bringing in JaVale McGee, life just got extremely difficult for both Nerlens Noel and Nemias Queta.
Absolutely.
Like both of them, not
so
one
interesting.
or the other.
Alex Lynn's good.
Well, and see, that would be the other thing. If you could still just pay out Alex, and again, Alex would be a 1-year deal at $3 million. You could either pay out the $3 million, or you could stretch it over 2 years. Well, actually be 3 and pay him $1 million a year. I don't know that there'd be a lot of reason to do that. But again, I think that Alex is one of those guys that, like, yes, having JaVale McGee puts you in the bubble, especially when you're going to have 4 guys, and it's really 4 guys for probably 2 spots. And like, do you need 2 older guys that kind of do the same thing? Do you get rid of the younger guy that has like a bargain basement $2 million deal for next season too, if he works out? Like, how do you judge like who?
And none of those guys are Nerlens Noel, right? Nerlens is like in the middle of that. Right. He's not the old guy. He's not the young guy. He's the one kind of in the middle of that.
And to your point earlier, we're talking about a guy, even if it is JaVale McGee, who's going to be playing once a week, maybe twice a week. It's not Trey Lyles. Trey Lyles is the number 1 backup center. Sasha's the backup 4. So whoever it is out of those 4 guys, they're really just playing the role of situational big. Not even your true backup center like that.
Especially a 35-year-old guy. I mean, you are looking at a situational big. And like there could come a point where you just look and go, okay, like he doesn't work with this roster or something. But I think all of the pieces kind of fit. Like, I would feel a lot more confident with JaVale McGee having Sasha Vezenkov's back than Nemias Queta at this point. But Nerlens Noel not knowing if he would be healthy, even Alex Len, even for a lot of times Trey Lyles. So if you're relying heavily on Sasha, but he's getting beat because he isn't the quickest as far as lateral quickness and in space. I'd rather have a guy like JaVale McGee who plays a true goalkeeper back there that can support him than I would some of these other options.
Weird question before we go, because I don't think I have, given what we're doing tomorrow on the show. Have you heard Sasha talk?
No, like I've watched videos of him talk, but I've never. Yeah,
I haven't even seen videos of him
I
talk.
actually have. Now that you think about it, the whole time I was watching like Eurobasket, they always did like a halftime piece on him because he's like MVP dude, and he speaks.
I'm intrigued to see.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. He speaks. That's good. He's going to have a press conference.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to ask him questions more.
Yeah, good stuff. All right. Well, Sasha Vezenkov will be introduced to James Ham and the Sacramento media tomorrow. We'll be carrying that press conference for you live, thanks to our friends over at the Sacramento Kings. So that'll bring us a lot of Kings content to talk about. I believe that begins at 2:00. If timing works out, I think we'll have Matt George in the final hour of the show. Of course, that'll be a pretty busy day for him. I'm sure he'll be at the press conference. And as we mentioned, tune in at the top of the show, certainly near the top of the show. We'll give everyone time to filter in, but we've got some exciting things to tell you, and we're going to do that tomorrow. Appreciate you for being with us.